trucking. We gonna do what they say can be done. We've got a long way to go and a short time to get there. I'm eastbound, just watch old Bandit run. Keep your foot hard on the pedal. Some never mind him.
Hello, strangers. Strange Worlds Unlimited. I'm your host, Fred Strange, and I want to talk to you today about a film, the film, Smokey and the Bandit. Now, why am I talking about Smokey and the Bandit? Why and I remember about Smokey and the Bandit? It's a movie. Shouldn't that be something that some movie critic should do, and that, you know, CinemaSins or or nostalgia critics should be doing something? Well, the movie happens to be one of my favorites, especially as a child. But before I get into how that works into my memories and how that's going to be pertinent to the, you know, how my life ran as a child, particularly in the before and the after here, let's talk a little bit about the movie. What is it about? Well, first of all, Smokey and the Bandit was a movie that came out originally in 1977, alongside another small little space movie that came out about the same time. And it was the second highest grossing film of 1977, behind that small little space movie that came out the same year. And it tells a story of a truck driver named Bo Darville, who goes by the CB handle, the Bandit. And he and his friend, Cletus Snow, whose CB handle is Snowman, they get hired by a couple of rich Texans named Big and Little Enos Burdett. To go from their home in Atlanta, Georgia, all the way to Texas, and they picked Texarkana because it's basically the closest thing. It's run into Texas, as the name might imply, Texas-Arkansas border, and it straddles that state line. You've got Texarkana, Texas, Texarkana, Arkansas. It straddles the line. So they're going to go out to Texarkana and pick up Coors beer and bring it back to Atlanta. Now, why is that important? Well, in 1977, Coors could only be transported a certain distance. They really didn't have the kind of refrigerated trucks that they do now. They didn't have the kind of bottlers, regional bottlers that they do now. So you could only transport Coors, which was made in Colorado, only so far, and basically east of Texas was considered bootlegging and therefore illegal. And so here are these Texas millionaires, billionaires, who knows, with the Burdett family, they got a lot of money. They're in Atlanta, they're throwing a party, they want Coors, so they hire these truck drivers to go, and so they approach Bandit and because they've heard of his reputation. He's already got a reputation, he's heard of it, and they want him to go, and within like a short span of time, I can't remember exactly what it is. I'll maybe see if I can find a clip and insert it in here.
Now get to Texarkana and back in 28 hours. That's no problem.
But short span of time, basically, 900 miles from Atlanta to Texarkana and then back. 900 miles each way. It's 1,800 miles in, like, it's some ridiculous time. 24, 36, something like that, hours. So basically, in order to make that trip back and forth, they have to go really fast. And Bandit, knowing this, says, okay, well, I can't just drive my truck. I need something that'll kind of run as a decoy for any cops that not only might catch the truck speeding, but also might then notice the fact that, especially on the trip back, it's got a cargo full of illegal beer. So he convinces the Burdettes to buy him a car, and he buys a black Trans Am. With the Firebird all on the hood and everything like that. And so he's going to drive that. The Snowman, his friend Cletus Snow, is going to drive their big truck. They're going to go back and forth. Along the way, just outside of, they get all the way to Texas, no problem. Loaded up with some minor issues. And then start driving it back. And the bulk of the movie is the drive back, because just outside of Texarkana, Bandit picks up a runaway bride, and Carrie, I believe, and he nicknames her Frog. And the problem with this runaway bride is that she was supposed to get married to the sheriff's son. And, well, the sheriff isn't too happy about that. The sheriff being Sheriff Buford T. Justice, and his son, Buford T. Justice Jr. So the sheriff goes in hot pursuit of Bandit, thinking that he's kidnapped the girl, and then of course they witnesses and the attempts of Bandit trying to get, running decoy against all the various cops that he comes across. Of course, the whole idea is to try to outrun them and get away and everything like that. So, Sheriff Justice is basically making a list of everything that this outlaw is doing, as he pursues him. In a very comedic fashion from Texas back across, Arkansas and Mississippi and Alabama and Georgia, till the end. So that's basically the story in a nutshell. If you haven't seen it, go and see it, certainly. Now, I'm not one for country music per se. In fact, I generally dislike it a lot. But in this case, I could listen to this song all day long. Now, I first saw Smokey and the Bandit shortly after the movie came out not in 77. In the early 80s, we had these new machines called VHS tape recorders. They had the VHS and the Betamax, and the VHS eventually won. Anybody who's familiar with that history. And shortly after the VHS tape recorders came out, and it started this whole industry of video rentals. Basically, the earliest of what Blockbuster would become. We had all these stores that would rent out movies, and so we rented and copied Smokey and the Bandit. And so I saw that at probably about the age of 7, 8. Way sooner than I should have. What I didn't know then, what my parents obviously didn't realize, however old I was, 7 or 8, way too young to be watching a movie such as that. For one thing, I fell in love with everything about that movie. I loved the fun of chattering away on the CB radios. We actually had installed a CB in both of my parents' cars at the time, and so I loved hearing those exchanges. And of course, it's scattered. It was at the height of the CB craze back then, and so it became it became this kind of flash in the pan fad. Obviously, maybe up until recently, I don't know if any truck drivers out there still use CB radios, or if they're, if they're using, they're just using their phones now. But up until the invention of the cell phone, there was they were CB radios, but they became kind of a thing in the late 70s, and so they made these movies. So I loved all the chatter back and forth about it. I loved that black Trans Am. I liked, Burt Reynolds as the Bandit. I liked his swagger and everything like that. And I loved the constant flow of bad words that punctuated nearly every sentence uttered by all of the characters, especially Jackie Gleason's Sheriff Buford Key Justice.
Your ass.
What do you say?
Shut up, one shit at a time.
All right.
No shit. If they had cremated the son of a bitch, I could have been kicking that Mr. Bandit's ass around the moon by now.
My head blew off, Daddy.
I hope that goddamn head was in it. Good shit. I saw that, you son bitch! You did that on purpose! You're gonna wait till you agree! I got the evidence! Put the evidence in the car!
But Daddy,
Put the evidence in the car! I gotta barbecue your ass in molasses!
I just ate it up. I absorbed it. I made so much of that movie my own, especially the language part of things. Oh boy. If my parents only knew what a foul-mouthed prat their son had become because of that movie, I probably wouldn't be alive today, because my dad would have killed me. And knowing that, I kept it very carefully hidden from them. But around my peers, my friends, what few friends I had, my classmates, I was probably known as the best damn cusser in the neighborhood because, I absorbed it all. And again, not that I had too many friends at that time. Obviously, check out everything around this particular video. But I probably scared off about as many potential friends due to my constant use of that language. I scared off as many of them about that as I probably did due to all just my weird, strange behavior. My scatterbrain spaced out, and as I also explained in another video, the fact that I just my total disdain for where I was living at the time. So beyond being, this foul-mouthed punk, being obsessed with that movie, I obsessed over that Trans Am. I wanted one so badly. But by the time I fully come to realize that later, after Germany, the damage to my dad's back had been done, and we were just dirt poor. We were basically living off of my mother's income. Story told later. There was no chance for my family ever affording to buy such a car. Kind of impractical anyway. But that didn't stop me from bragging to anybody who would listen about how I would be rich and famous one day, and that I would one day own my very own Bandit-styled Trans Am. Yeah, the follies of my youth. I've yet to become rich and famous, much less earn enough that I could be able to afford such a car regardless. But, and not that I'd have much of a chance to own one now anyway. Shortly after I began boasting about getting one, Pontiac changed the design dramatically. The Firebird Trans Am that was, made famous by Smokey and the Bandit got turned into one used by Knight Rider. in the 80s. Still cool in many ways, but it just didn't have that same, just didn't have the same qualities that the Bandit version had. It wasn't the same muscle car that it had been. It'd be kind of redesigned a little bit later in the 90s to kind of bring some of that back. The 90s Trans Am kind of began to morph from that 80s model it started incorporating elements of the 70s models. So, she made it black, put a gold Firebird on the hood. I've seen versions of that around the neighborhood, and, I fell in love with it again. Still couldn't afford one. Couldn't then, can't now. And then came the auto industry crash, back in 2007, 2008. And the auto industry took a huge dump, and General Motors got rid of Pontiac brand altogether. And seeing as how Pontiac made the Trans Am, no more Pontiac, no more Trans Am. So much for childhood dreams, huh? Now, and unfortunately, I a couple years ago noticed that Burt Reynolds was auctioning off his 1978 Bandit Trans Am. It went for like $400,000 or something like that. Just ridiculous. It's like, I so wanted one. But yeah, so that's my story about, the kind of kid I guess I was. I really wanted that car, so I bragged about it. I even bragged about, I was gonna find some way of getting money to even get like a little go-kart, and then in the style of the Trans Am, just so I could have a little go-kart to drive around that looked like a Trans Am. And then of course when I became an adult and rich and famous, and the singer, the rock star that I was going to be, I would then, of course, one of my first cars I would buy, would be that same Trans Am. I bragged about that endlessly, to anybody who would listen. Yeah. And of course, I had a bit of a mouth on me, and it got me. It didn't so much get me in trouble. There was one episode which, if you're watching this, you've probably already heard about the other episode. So I'm kind of cross-linking back and forth with my classmate Shannon, and in second grade. So the second grade is it started then. And so yeah. Anyway, I guess that'll do it for now. I will, of course, be continuing on, keep watching for later episodes here. This should basically be right in the middle of my Oklahoma, early Oklahoma, now Germany, and then back to Oklahoma, kind of story here. So, yeah, and and keep in mind that my colorful use of language. If you've watched Smoking the Bandit, everything that was said in that movie, especially by Jackie Gleason, I was saying at the age of 8. Okay, second grade-ish on, all the way through elementary, all the way through junior high, high school. And then you kind of grow up and realize, okay, that's not exactly the most sophisticated languages. Maybe I should think of other things to say. But, you say how, movies and video games, don't influence the young. Yeah, they kind of do. So that's why now as a parent, I can say to other parents out there, be careful what you let your kids do, because you never know what's going to influence them in the wrong ways. So, anyway, I will see you guys in the next video, and stay strange. Bye-bye.
Thanks for watching my video. If you like what you just watched, don't forget to give me a thumbs up below. For more of my videos, click the subscribe button on the screen or down in the description below. If you'd like to support me and what I do, I have books that you can read. The links are in the description below. If you want to support in other ways, you can go to my Patreon page and help me out there. You can also follow me on various social media pages. The links to all of those are also below. Thank you again. Stay strange.